everybody, I'm Cannaday, and today we're taking a look at Marvel Champions Mutant Genesis. The X-Men have finally come to Marvel Champions. Let's take a look. Alright, so let's take a look at the Mutant Genesis set for Marvel Champions. X-Men are finally in the game! So we have two heroes here. They come with the box. That is Shadowcat and Colossus. I guess we'll take a look at Colossus first. So Colossus starts, of course, in his alter ego side, which has 4 recovery. Then the setup is search your deck for a copy of Organic Steel and add it to your hand, which we'll get to Organic Steel in just a minute. And then Aspiring Artist, after you have changed this form, shuffle a Colossus card from your discard pile back into your deck, allowing you to get those cards back over and over again. And then the cool part here is Colossus. He has 1 thwart, 2 attack, 2 defense. Colossus can have an additional tough status card, so he can have 2 status cards. 2 tough status cards instead of just 1, and still skin response after you change to this form, give Colossus a tough status card. So he's just always going to have that tough status card as you flip up to have him be in hero mode. And let's take a look at the cards here. So the first one is that Organic Steel. So Organic is a 2-cost upgrade, uses 2 steel counters. Hero response after a tough status card is discarded from Colossus, exhaust this card and remove 1 of the steel counters from it and give Colossus a tough status card. So this will basically just make Colossus tough over and over again, but it has 2 uses. So as his tough statuses go away, you can put tough statuses back on him. So you have 2 of those in the deck. Then an Iron Will upgrade that costs 2. Colossus gets +1 thwart. After a tough status card is discarded from Colossus, you get to draw a card, so allowing you with some card draw. Then a 2-cost upgrade, Titanium Muscles. Colossus gets +1 attack. Exhaust this card to generate a fighting resource for each tough status card on Colossus. So you kind of want him to keep those tough status cards. Then his studio here, this is a 1-cost support. Alter ego action, exhaust his studio. Discard cards from your deck until you discard a Colossus card and add it to your hand, allowing you to kind of like scry your deck to get those Colossus cards. And then a 2-cost event here, Fist of Steel. This is an attack. It deals 5 damage to an enemy. You may discard a tough status card if you do stun and confuse that enemy. So discarding tough statuses allows you to do status effects to your opponents there. And then Made of Rage. This is a 0-cost event. When you make a basic attack, discard a tough status card from your hero. You get +1 attack for that attack. This attack gains Overkill. So discarding tough statuses to get a bunch of extra attack for your basic attack. And then Bulletproof Protector is a 0-cost event. Discard a tough status card from your hero. Choose to give your hero 2 tough status cards, or ready your hero. So you can either ready or get even more tough statuses. Then Armor Up. This is a 0-cost event. When the villain activates, change hero form. So this allows you to basically, as alter ego, you can basically be Pietro and flip up, so that way you are then Colossus to be able to fight. And you have 2 of those. And then Shadowcat is your signature ally there, with 2 thwart, 1 consequential, costs 3 to play, 2 attack, 1 consequential. Shadowcat ignores guard and patrol keywords on any crisis icons in play, so she can run through and get around people who are trying to stop her, which makes a lot of sense for Shadowcat. Then the ally here, Polaris, 1 thwart, 1 consequential, 2 attack, 1 consequential. After it enters play, give an X-Men character a tough status card. Awesome. So you could also give that to her because she is also X-Men. You can give it to other allies, or you could give it to Colossus, of course, because he can combo with all those tough statuses. The Nightcrawler, a 3-cost ally here. He is 2 thwart with 1 consequential and 2 attack with 1 consequential. Interrupt. When an X-Men character would take any amount of damage from an enemy attack, spend a power resource and return Nightcrawler to your hand to prevent all of that damage. So basically, Nightcrawler can pop back into your hand and save your characters. 1-cost upgrade here. This is Protective Training. So this is one of the training cards you'll see a lot with the X-Men stuff here. So this is attached to an X-Men ally, a maximum 1 training upgrade per ally. The attached ally gets +3 hit points, allowing that ally to stay on the board much longer with his consequential damage there. So these are really great for helping your allies stick around with extra hit points there. And then Perseverance is the 1-cost event. After you change form, give your hero a tough status card, so allowing you to get tough as you jump up. And then Bait and Switch is the 1-cost event. This is a thwart. The villain attacks you, remove 4 threat from the main scheme. So taking attacks to be able to remove threat for a cheap cost seems pretty good. And then on 1 event, Mutant Protectors, play only if your identity is X-Men. Hero Interrupt. When an enemy attacks you, put an X-Men ally into play from your hand. Exhaust and declare it as the defender of the attack. This is kind of like sneak attack there. You can kind of jump in your mutants and allow them to defend the attacks there. And then Powerful Punch. Hero Interrupt, attack defense. When an enemy initiates an attack, deal 4 damage to that enemy. So you immediately get to jump on somebody and give them some damage when they attack you. And then here is a protection resource. This is max 2 per deck. When you spend this resource to play a defense event, you get to draw a card. So it kind of helps replace unless you play those defense events. Then we have Professor X himself. This is a 3-cost ally, 3 thwart, 1 consequential damage, 0 attack. This is after Professor X enters play, choose 1. Confuse the villain, stun a minion, or ready an X-Men character. Until the end of round, if Professor X is still in play, discard him. So then he will go away. Then we have the X-Jet here. This is a 3-cost support. Exhaust the X-Jet to generate a wild resource for a player whose identity has the X-Men trait. So you can kind of use this to help other players on the who have X-Men characters in play or X-Men hero in play. You can exhaust this resource and get a wild for them. Then Shadow and Steel. This is the team-up card for Shadowcat and Colossus. This is a 2-cost. Hero Interrupt. When the enemy attacks, prevent all the damage from the attack. Deal 4 damage to the attacking enemy. And then we have the same cards you've seen a ton of times, but this now has X-Men artwork instead of the Avengers artwork. So you have Energy, Genius, and Strength. So we now have cards that are the same that we've seen a ton of times, but they now have new stuff. And then we have the Obligation here. I normally don't go too much into these just because I like people to be able to discover that stuff by themselves. But Juggernaut is his minion there, and then a bunch of things, Juggernaut, which of course is going to mess around with tough statuses and stuff like that. So there is Colossus. All right, Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde. So this is a 3 recovery setup. Put your mass form upgrade into play, solid state face up. And then phase control, flip your mass form upgrade, limit once per round. So she has a upgrade card here that we'll talk about in just a second, but this will kind of like allow her to switch back and forth in between her forms. And then we have, for her hero side, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 2 defense, selective intangibility. Once you are in phase mass form, Shadowcat ignores the guard and patrol keywords and crisis icons in play. She has 9 hit points and a hand size of 5 on this side and 6 on that side, which is pretty standard. Cool, so let's take a look at this solid and intangible forward. So you start on solid. So solid basically says mass form permanent. Exhaust this card and generate a fighting resource for the attack and defense events. So you can play your attack and defense events and get a resource for that. And then after you attack or defend in solid mass form, flip this card. So you can then flip this card. And then on phase side here, while Shadowcat is defending, she cannot take damage. So that's cool. So if you choose to defend, you don't actually take any damage. And after you attack or defend in phase form, flip this card. So one side will give you resources to play attack and defense events. The other side will allow you to defend and take no damage. That's kind of how her phase stuff works. Let's see how some of the other cards happen. So Intangible Interference, a 1-cost upgrade. After you ignore a crisis icon on a scheme, which you can with your ability here, exhaust this and remove 2 threat from that scheme, so it allows you to remove even more threat. And then Articulate Control, this is a 1-cost upgrade. After you ignore the guard patrol keyword on a minion, exhaust this and deal 2 damage to that minion. So when you run by minions, you'll deal extra damage. And then Phased and Confused, this is a 3-cost upgrade. Hero form only, attached to an enemy, max 1 per enemy. Force Interrupt, when the attached enemy would attack, discard this card instead and confuse that enemy. This is kind of like webbed up a little bit, but instead of stunning them twice, it first stuns them and then it confuses them. So that's kind of cool. So you have 2 of those. And then Kitty's Room, this is a 1-cost support. Exhaust Kitty's Room If you are in solid mass form, you're going to heal 2 damage from Kitty Pryde. And if you're in phased mass form, you're going to draw a card. So depending on which side you're on with your little forms, you'll be able to do different abilities while you're an alter ego. And this is a 2-cost event here. 3 damage to an enemy, ready your hero. So pretty awesome there. So allowing you to do damage and then also ready. So you have a couple of those, or actually 3 of those. And then Airwalk, this is a 1-cost event. Remove 2 threat from a scheme. 4 threat instead if you are in phased mass form. So depending on the form you're in, this will be even better. And you can try to make sure that happens. Quick Shift, this is a 0-cost event. When an enemy attacks you, if you're in solid mass form, you will change to phase mass form. So you can kind of be a phase mass form and then defend and not take any damage. Or if you're already in phase mass form, you can play this and draw 2 cards. So allowing you to get a little bit of hand draw there, helping you try to prevent and defend people from damage. And then Phase Strike, this is a 3-cost event, deals 6 damage to an enemy. If you're in phase mass form, you may discard an attachment with the text hero action or hero response from that enemy. So basically, you can attack a bad guy, and if they have certain attachments on them that are helping them out, you can hopefully figure out a way to discard them by if they have the hero action or hero response on it. And then the signature ally here is Lockheed. It is a 2-cost ally with 1 thwart and 1 consequential damage, 1 attack, 1 consequential damage, and response after it enters play. If you're in solid mass form, it deals 2 damage to the enemy. If you're in phase mass form, it removes 2 threat. So basically, depending on which side you're on, it'll do different things. And then Wolverine himself. This is a 4-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 consequential damage, 3 attack, but you're going to take 2 consequential damage. But also, Wolverine's attacks gain piercing. So it has piercing, he has 4 hit points, but response, after your turn begins, heal 1 damage from Wolverine. So he has that healing factor, and he can stick around on the board for a long time if you're able to kind of like manipulate that properly. And then here we have Magic. This is a 3-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 consequential, 2 attack, 1 consequential, 3 hit points. Then we have after you play Magic from your hand, spend a science resource and choose a non-elite minion engaged with an X-Men hero. Shuffle that minion into the encounter deck. So you can kind of make a minion disappear on you. Pretty awesome there. And then here is another one of the trainings here. This is the aggression training. This is a 1-cost upgrade. Attack training. Attached to an X-Men ally. Training, 1 training per ally. Attached ally gets +1 attack and +2 hit points. This seems awesome if you want to try to do a bunch of damage. You get 3 of those cards in here, making your allies even stronger. And then Gatekeeper, this is a 0-cost upgrade. Attached to a minion, the attached minion gets +2 hit points and gains patrol. So it makes the minion better, but when attached minion is defeated, remove 4 threat from the main scheme. So you're basically able to remove threat by defeating a minion. But yeah, interesting card. Toe to Toe, this is a 1-cost event. Hero action, choose an enemy. That enemy attacks you, which could not be too bad if you're in phased form. You could kind of like be able to dodge that. But then you deal 5 damage to the enemy. Dealing 5 damage for 1 isn't too bad, but you're going to have to take that attack there. And then we have Team Strike. This is a 1-cost event. Play only if you have the X-Men trait. Exhaust your hero and any number of X-Men allies. Deal X damage among the enemies from where the total is the attack of all the characters you exhausted this way. This allows you to basically do attacks without doing consequential damage to your allies, which could be good if you're trying to keep them around on the board. Then a resource here, Aggressive Energy. Hero Interrupt. When you spend this resource card to play an attack event, that event deals 1 extra damage. Nice. Then Colossus. So Colossus doesn't get to be the signature ally in Kitty Pryde's deck, but he is a basic ally, so you can put him in everybody's. This is a 4-cost ally, 1 thwart, 3 attack, 2 consequential damage on the attack there. Reduce the cost to play Colossus by 1 if your identity has the Mutant or X-Men trait, and he has Toughness. So he costs 3 for most of the time if you're having an X-Men character. Then the X-Mansion is a 2-cost support here. Alter Ego action, exhaust X-Mansion, and heal 1 damage from a mutant or an X-Men character. Any player's Alter Ego mutant trait may trigger this ability. So basically, you don't even have to trigger it. The other players playing the game could trigger it as well, as long as they're X-Men or mutants. Then Ready to Rumble. This is a 1-cost upgrade. Play under any player's control, max 1 per player. After you change forms, you can discard this card to ready your hero. Awesome. So another way to ready there after you change. And then Shadow and Steel, we talked about this before in Colossus, it's a 2-cost event, team up for them. When the enemy attacks, you can prevent all damage from the attack and deal 4 damage to the attacking enemy. And then we once again have the alternate art of Strength, Energy, and Genius. And then her obligation is permanently phased. And then her minion, or her signature minion here, is the White Queen with a whole bunch of Hellfire pawns. Awesome, so that is Shadowcat. Talk about the campaign here for a second. Just like the other big boxes, there's a really cool campaign with lots of cool, awesomely illustrated stuff with X-Men comic book art where they've kind of custom made the stuff. But don't look too much into that because I don't want to have too many spoilers. But one of the new things here is that there are now roles that your characters can have. So as the game goes along, you can kind of unlock these campaign roles. And at the beginning of the campaign, you'll pick whether you want to be a peacekeeper, a defender, a commander, or a brawler. And then as you do certain things in the campaign, you will randomly kind of get one of these cards. They're kind of one-time use for the campaigns, and they'll do all sorts of cool things, but I'll let you guys discover that as you play through the campaign of Mutant Genesis yourself. Alright, so for the villains, I try not to go too in-depth on everything because I really do think one of the fun parts of this game is discovering all the bad cards and having things randomly pop up on you. And if you see every single one of them beforehand, it's not quite as exciting, but I'll just give you my rundown, a little hints about kind of how these work a little bit. But Sabretooth, he basically is going to be healing all the time and trying to wreck Robert Kelly here. If he dies, you're going to end up losing the campaign, and he's going to be doing a bunch of extra damage to him. A crazy thing about Sabretooth is basically each time he activates, he's going to end up healing. So you really have to hit him hard and try to figure out a way to not let Robert Kelly take the damage. If you're able to take out certain schemes, you're going to be able to protect Robert Kelly better. But Sabretooth is a beast, literally, as he keeps healing again and again and slashing away at everyone. Sentinels are definitely my favorite out of the set as far as the villains go. They're just really fun to play and feel like classic X-Men. But one of the interesting things about Sentinels is there's an alternate lose condition for the game. So basically with the Operation Zero Tolerance has permanent as you play. So basically, if you have too many allies stuck under here, or too many cards in general stuck under here, you're going to lose the game. The main scheme is going to be basically adding those cards underneath there as well if too much threat gets out. And another thing is you're going to be releasing a bunch more allies. So you'll get a bunch of extra allies in the game. You're also going to have a chance to get Jubilee, which is pretty fun, and all sorts of different crazy stuff. I just really enjoy Sentinels, and it feels like X-Men as you're trying to fight them off, as tons of Sentinels end up coming out, and you just try to figure out how to get a bunch of allies, and you get really strong, but the whole time, allies, you can't really use them to chump block, because if you do, they're going to go under Operation Zero Tolerance and wreck your day. Anyway, so that is the Sentinels. Master Mode has a lot of the same makeup as the Sentinels deck, but Master Mode is going to be very much just about spamming Sentinels out on the board. So whenever he schemes, whenever you're in alter ego mode and he would scheme, he's just going to be putting more and more Sentinels out, and basically a bunch of his cards and things are going to make Sentinels come out. Those Sentinels are going to be targeting you and trying to wreck your day. So there's just tons of Sentinel minions trying to get you, which makes a lot of sense for Master Mode, seeing that he's the one making the Sentinels. And yeah, so if you want to face off against fighting a bunch of the minions of the Sentinels, then playing against Master Mode is a lot of fun. The next one here is the Brotherhood of Mutants. Oh my goodness, I played against them several times and kept dying over and over again, but you have Pyro, Toad, the Blob, and Avalanche, and they're all going to have slightly different stats. You do have to knock out 2 of these. If you're playing in advanced mode, you have the harder side there as well, but they also have their main scheme. There's random main schemes that you can kind of face off against, which will kind of just change up the way that the game plays, whether you're getting extra attack or everybody has retaliate or all sorts of different stuff, or everybody kind of starts coming in wounded or starts coming in with tough status cards, all sorts of different things like that. But they are a menace to try to go up against, as everything is kind of just messing you up, but you have to try to take down at least a couple of the Brotherhood to be able to be successful against them. And then last up here is Magneto, the big boss. He is going to be a super menace with all sorts of different Magneto magnetic cards coming out that can do all sorts of different effects to your characters and just wrecking your day. And basically he just has a bunch of stuff in there, and he's going to be getting stronger as time goes by. You basically have to like sequentially take out a bunch of different schemes to make it so that you're even able to properly deal damage to him. So you just have to figure out ways to properly scheme, take those schemes out, deal enough damage to take him down. He's going to be a bruiser and someone hard to mess with because he's going to be adding so many mean effects to you with those magnetic cards that he's going to be constantly pulling out of the deck. But he is the boss and the final guy you have to fight in the campaign. So that is Magneto. Alright, so that's basically everything you get in the set there. You get your 2 heroes and your villains, and you have the cool campaign that you can go up against, and your different upgrades as you have different stuff as the campaign goes along. But that is your game there for Mutant Genesis. Let's take a look at what I think. Alright, so I first want to preface this with X-Men are my favorite characters in all of the Marvel lore and cinematic stuff. I grew up with the cartoons, I love the comics, I really enjoy X-Men, so this is kind of like a no-brainer because it's X-Men in my favorite game. I really enjoy both of those things, but I want to talk about all the different stuff. I really like Colossus with his, basically, he just has that toughness coming on him over and over again. It gives an interesting way to play the game. He's very strong and able to basically not take much damage and just figure out how to manipulate those toughnesses, because do you want to use him to block and be able to stop from taking damage as his toughnesses fall off? But a lot of his cards need the toughnesses to be able to actually activate properly or be stronger as it goes along. So it adds this interesting position of figuring out ways to get your tough status back, flipping down, flipping back up to get the cool tough statuses. I really enjoy Colossus. I think he's a lot of fun. Then Shadowcat also has all the sneaking around and kind of doing different stuff, and the way she's able to fend off damage as well. Both of these characters are very much just able to stop taking damage or figuring out ways to stop taking damage. When she's in insubstantial form, she can kind of block all the damage, but then she also gets the resources when she's in basically solid mode, and then she can have those to be able to play those attack events or defense events. And it's really cool to see how she can kind of sneak around stuff and do the extra damage and figure out ways to get in there. She has cards to unexhaust and cards to be able to draw extra cards and cards to be able to flip and change modes. Both these characters have stuff that allow them to flip and change modes kind of in a response to different things, which I think is cool. Another thing I really enjoy about the X-Men stuff is the fact that there's training cards and allies that can kind of stick around on the board even longer. It just makes you feel like you have a team of X-Men, as you have allies that can actually stay around and you can actually figure out ways to use them. But then the game itself has certain scenarios where it punishes you for having allies and then letting them die off by chump blocking and things like that. So you have to find interesting ways to shove off damage or be able to heal yourself up so that way your allies are not getting knocked out, because that might knock you out of the game as well. I really enjoyed a lot of the scenarios. Man, Sabretooth is pretty tough. As he's healing back up, you really have to figure out ways to damage him really quickly, or it's just going to feel like all of your work is undone. You really can't play too slow with him, and the whole time he's trying to smash down Robert Kelly. It's a lot of interesting fun figuring out where you want to focus. Do you want to focus on trying to figure out how to defend Robert, or do you try to take down Sabretooth as fast as possible? I love the Sentinels campaign. It's probably my favorite villain of all time really now, just because I really enjoy the fact that you get a bunch of extra allies, and your X-Men stuff kind of allows you to boost allies, so that's really cool. And being able to figure out ways to keep those allies alive and use those in certain ways is just really fun for me. And the fact that you're releasing them constantly as the game goes along, but not chump blocking with them so that they mess you up. And just playing X-Men against Sentinels just feels very much like what X-Men should be doing, you know? So that really feels thematic for me. And then Master Mode, just throwing out tons of Sentinel minions all the time. So if you want to do a ton of damage or have a bunch of things in your way for attacking Master Mode, then those Sentinels are going to be mean to you. He's interesting and fun to play. I didn't have too much of an issue beating him up, because if you don't flip down into Alter Ego mode, he's not going to bring out Sentinels as bad. So that way, if you just stay up and you're able to shuffle off the damage and not worry, just stay in hero mode the whole time, you're not going to have too many Sentinels to worry about. But he's also a fun one to play against. The Brotherhood of Mutants was insanely hard to take out. They're super interesting the way that they worked, with the fact that you have different ones each time and they can kind of switch up, and then each card is going to be pulling them out of the deck and putting them into play and then activating them in all sorts of different ways. They are a pain, and like I said, I played against them a bunch of times and ended up keep getting wrecked. And then Magneto is another one that he feels really tough as these magnetic things are coming out, just putting different effects on you, and you have to go through each stage of those side schemes to be able to wreck that stuff. But yeah, I really enjoy Mutant Genesis. If you can't tell about me raving about it so far, I love Marvel Champions, and the fact that X-Men is my favorite, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. This is like my favorite product that's come out for this game so far. So if you don't have Mutant Genesis and you really like X-Men at all, or if you haven't played Marvel Champions and you're looking at like, you can't play this standalone, but if you got the core set and got this, I think you'd still have a lot of fun with it, especially if you enjoy X-Men. I just really enjoy the way the game comes together and playing with those cool X-Men characters and having a lot of really cool scenarios with characters that I really feel passionate about and excited about makes this an excellent for me. So yes, that is Marvel Mutant Genesis. I love it. It's a lot of fun to play. I've had a blast playing through the campaign and playing with the characters over and over, playing those characters against other different villains in the Marvel Champions sets there. Let me know below which X-Men's you're most excited to play, which characters you really want to see added to the game. It's always fun to have comments and commentary. Let me know if you already bought the box set as well, because I know a bunch of you already went out and grabbed it before you saw the review, and good on you, because X-Men are a lot of fun. Anyway, this has been Cannaday. I'll see you on the next one.